If you are thinking about getting a bee hotel for your backyard, these are some things that you should know before you commit to buying one of these beauties. First of all, these are for native bees. So if you live in North America, you will not be getting any honey from these bees because honeybees are not native to North America. These hotels are for the solitary cavity nesting bees. They are very gentle. I have not given them their space ever, and they don't really care about me at all. Because they are solitary, they are not possessive of anything, of any of this space, because they have more important things to do, which is filling all of these cavities with little baby bees. You can think of each female as both a queen and a worker. And if it bums you out that these guys aren't going to give you any honey, let me just tell you this. Because they are native, they have evolved alongside all of our native plants, which means they are super pollinators. They are like, especially these bees, they're like 100 times more efficient than honeybee. There are some bees that are called specialists, and they pollinate only one plant, and that plant is only pollinated by that one particular pollinator. About 30% of our native pollinators use cavities when they nest. The other 70% are ground nesters. What they're doing is actually filling each and one of these cavities with a long line of baby bees. Each cell has its own baby bee, so it's kind of like the babies get their own rooms. And that's what they do. These bees in particular that are here right now only live for about 40 days. So they've got a lot of babies to crank out, which means that me coming here and shoving my face right up in theirs, they're inconvenienced, but not aggressive, which is good. And before you ask, I have not been stung. I'm pretty sure I will die if I do. So here's to hoping that I continue that streak. There are two main pollinators that you will see nesting in your bee hotel. This is really just a buzz of activity today. The first is the mason bee. The mason bees are in here right now, and they are the springtime bees and my personal gateway bee and my personal favorite, not only because they were the first bee that I ever had, but also because they are known to belly flop right into the flower. So typically, if you're a honeybee, you're delicately, daintily walking along the flower and you're getting pollen on your grocery bag leggies, and you're taking that to your hive. These guys, they just belly flop right in. And so they get covered in pollen. And you can actually see there is a bunch of pollen that someone spilled on the way into their nesting tube. The native species here for me is called the blue orchard bee, otherwise known as Bob. Adorable. And these girlies can do the work of 100 honeybees. A single one of them. They are the bees that typically are pollinating the early fruiting things like trees, berries, and anything else that happens to be flowering when they are waking up. The mason bees are given their name because when they put each baby in the cell, they actually close the whole thing up with mud. I like to tell kids to imagine how they would feel if they were given a loaf of bread, shoved in their bedroom, and it was completely closed up, and their parents just said, "All right, good luck. See you later." Or never, in this case, actually. So throughout the summer, the baby bees that are in their little cells with their little pollen loaf are growing and eating and sleeping and just having a veggie little time. They grow into a fully sized bee by the fall, and then they overwinter in a cocoon as a fully grown bee. And if you've seen my other videos, you know that once these guys are done for the fall, I clean this guy out and I harvest the bees and I put them in my fridge. But that's a story for another day. For now, I'm telling you about the hotels. The other resident that you will have is the leafcutter bee. They do the same thing of nesting in these cavities, but instead of using mud to separate all of their little baby bees, they actually wrap them in a little leaf sleeping bag. They will cut perfect circles out of the leaves. It doesn't harm the plants, don't worry. And they will then take that leaf, tuck it under their legs and fly off with it like they're riding a broomstick. Since they are the summertime bee, they are actively pollinating everything in your vegetable garden. They are smaller than these chonkos though, so they will be using the tubes that are a little bit smaller in diameter than the mason bees. When you harvest the leafcutter bees, you actually don't do it until the spring of the next year. And when you do, the whole thing looks like a long leaf cigar. Adorable. So if you do decide to get a hotel, there are a few things that you need to know on placement. First, you want to put it up somewhere sturdy. Unlike birds in their birdhouses, they don't like swinging around. In nature, they might find these tubes in a dead tree that another bug has made the hole of. And so you can imagine if the tree is moving around, they might not think that's safe. Additionally, you want to make sure that these are 3 feet off the ground, and that's mostly to prevent ants and other ground predators from getting at them. As for height, I would also recommend eye level, and if not eye level, then eye level when you're seated down, because if you're anything like me, you will be spending a lot of time watching these little babies. The other tip on where to place them is on a surface that is southeast facing. I don't think this is a super strong rule. I think it's more of a guideline, especially for the mason bees in particular, because in the springtime, sometimes it can be a little bit cold, and that southern morning light hits the hotel and warms up their little wings and gets them started a little bit earlier in the day. Anecdotally, I have seen them nest in north-facing cavities, so I don't think it's a hard and fast rule. If you have any birds in your area, you also might want to consider getting a bird screen or just putting up some chicken wire if you think that might be a problem. It has not been a problem for me. You wouldn't eat my baby bees, would you? Thank you for your help, ma'am. Another thing you might want to keep track of is when you put in a hotel like this, notice that I have a bunch of random sticks in here. That is actually to help the bees find their way to their nest. So bees are very visual, and so sticking in random sticks makes it easier and faster for them to find their nesting tube. For us as humans with large heads, we might look at this and say, oh, my nesting tube is the second row, third from the left. They don't operate that way. They might rather look at the random blue painted stick. I am the nesting tube directly above it or directly below it. So give them a little bit of navigation help. Okay. The final and maybe most important detail is that you want to be making sure that you're getting a good, high-quality bee hotel. There are a lot of hotels out there that you can buy that are actually very bad death traps. You can take the easy route, which is what I did, and buy these beautiful hotels from Crown Bees. Not a sponsor, just a fan. Otherwise, you've got some questions to ask yourself before you buy another one. So should you buy this really cute bee hotel? First, can you commit to cleaning it once a year? Honestly, the cleaning part is pretty minimal and easy, and I will show you how to do that this fall. Someone keeps flying in there and then just buzzing around. It's adorable. I do promise, though, it is very easy to clean it. Next, are the holes at least 4 inches deep? Let's see if I can find one in here that is not being used. If you have watched my other video, you might know that with these nesting tubes, the females are actually laid in the back, and then the males are laid in the front. So if you get a nesting tube that is not longer than 4 inches, you're just gonna get a bunch of dudes. Not that I have a problem with that, but it does take 2 to tango, if you know what I mean. Next, are the tubes removable and disposable for cleaning? Some of the hotels that you'll find actually have these nesting tubes glued to the back, which means that you can't get it out and harvest the bees and make sure that they are fine and dandy. And while that might not seem like a problem, it really means that you aren't setting up your next generation of bees for the best success that they could possibly have. I will point out that all of these nesting tubes are reasonably priced. I'm also investigating how to grow and make my own, so stay tuned for that. And then these over here are actually a reusable set. So if you don't want to continue to purchase them over and over, this would be a really good option. It's just a bunch of them sandwiched together, and you take them apart when you're ready to harvest them. And then you clean it, and then you are ready to use it again the next year. Highly recommend. Another thing to look out for is some kind of awning. And I personally like this little front porch area. Very frequently I will be watching them and they will land on this little bottom part as a kind of way to orient and then launch off into the world. Sometimes they don't. But the top awning is really important to keep more of the snow and weather out of the situation. They can handle getting a little bit wet, a little bit snowed on. They're gonna be fine. But especially if you're somewhere that gets a lot of moisture, you want to prevent any mold or other issue that might come up. Next, does it attach with little tiny screw hooks? Just like a birdhouse, you will see a little screw on top that is intended for you to hang it on something and then it just swings around. The bees don't like it, so don't buy it. And then finally, are the nesting tubes that come with this cute bee hotel made out of metal or plastic or glass? This part isn't particularly dangerous to the bees, but it just means that they won't use those nesting tubes because they don't like it, so they won't use it. So if you said yes to all of these questions, you should buy it. Buy the cute bee hotel. Now you have your bee hotel. There are two ways to get it full of residents. First is you just let nature do its thing. You operate a little bit on you build it and they will come. That does rely heavily on if you actually have any of these bees in your area. Our native bees are in severe decline, so there is a high chance that you put these guys out and then you don't get any residents. Maybe for 2 years, maybe ever. So the other option, if you're impatient like me, is to buy them. You can order them in the mail from Crown Bees, same company. Again, not sponsored, just a fan. And then if you happen to have a hotel and you've got no breakfast for your bed and breakfast, then you might also not get any residents that continue to stay with you at your hotel. I won't go into too much details on what you should plant, besides saying you should plant native. So again, quick summary. The 4 different seasons. Springtime, you're going to put your bee hotel out to catch the springtime bees like the mason bees. Summertime, you're just going to let them all do their thing. Fall, you're going to take it down, clean it, which I will show you in a future video. And then you're going to just store it away for the winter because no one's going to be using it, and it's best to preserve your hotel for longevity that way. So that's all you need to know. If you've made it this far in the video, I have every confidence in you that you will be a great bee parent. You should buy the bee hotel. Thanks for watching. Oh, and if you ever have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask. I love talking about bees, hence why I made this channel.